Hey mamas, I'm Brooke Miller, registered dietitian, certified lactation counselor, and a mama who has helped hundreds of moms feel like themselves again after baby, boost their energy, mood, metabolism, and even milk supply. Inside of the Postpartum Shift podcast, you'll learn how to take care of your health so that you can show up best for the ones you care about most. Each week, we'll tackle topics like nutrition, exercise, breastfeeding, mental health, and so much more. Plus, you'll get access to guest experts who will share ways to make your pregnancy and postpartum experience easier. Whether you're approaching the postpartum period or you're right in the thick of it, you're in the right place. Let's dive into today's topic. Hey, welcome back to the Postpartum Shift podcast. I'm so excited you're here today. And we have a special guest, Susan, and we are going to be talking all about fertility and how to optimize your fertility. So if you are trying to conceive, if you are struggling with infertility, if you think you might want to have more kids in the future or start a family in the future, then this episode is for you. And Susan, can you just introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you, who you are, what you do, and why you do it, and how you kind of got here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm super happy to just chat with you and share a little bit about my story and how I ended up here. So my name is Susan. I'm a registered dietitian and I specialize in fertility nutrition. And I got here from my own fertility journey. So I started with my husband, we started trying to conceive in 2017. And it was a long road and it was definitely not something that we were prepared for. You kind of like go into it thinking that, and I'm sure you can relate to this, Brooke, but like you kind of go into it thinking like you're just gonna get like pregnant right away. And like I feel like it's not talked about, maybe more so now, but like historically it's not talked about like just like how hard it can be to get pregnant, how often people have like miscarriages, for example. And I know that you share your story with miscarriage. So I imagine that there's people listening that also have stories surrounding that. But these kind of like struggles to get pregnant, just in my experience, were like not really talked about. It felt very like uncommon. And I'll have you know, like it actually is more common. The statistic has actually changed. It's now 1 in 6. So if you are someone that is struggling, even with secondary infertility, like it's not uncommon.
Yeah.
So we started trying to conceive. We did like the usual, you know, they tell you to wait a year, see like what happens. And so we never got pregnant in that year. So we went to do testing. And then that's kind of when we started to get like an inkling of like that we might be diagnosed with male factor infertility. But honestly, like we kind of just chalked it up to like, oh, like maybe we're just stressed. Like we just didn't really understand everything. And also we weren't given enough information about like male factor in the first place. So I think if we would have known maybe potentially like how severe it like was, like we would have maybe made different choices. But
Right.
We ultimately decided to start like fertility treatments in 2018. And when we started with IUIs, which I think a lot of couples actually start there. And you know, the thing is like it's cost effective.
It is. And it's not that invasive. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's not that invasive. It's, you know, like you might spend like $700 to $800, maybe $1,000 a treatment. However, the success rates are fairly low. But it does work for some people.
Yeah.
And we were kind of under the impression that like, oh, it's male factor, like this will probably just work. Anyways, but after 4 rounds, that didn't really work. So we ended up switching and my husband had surgery and we tried 4 more rounds. And at this point, like, mind you, it's like 2020, getting close to 2021. Like, so at this point, it's been like 3.5, 4 years. And we're starting to consider doing IVF. IVF has higher success rates, but it is a lot more invasive. It's costly. It's not cheap. and insurance in the US is not required to cover it. So some states have mandatory coverage, others do not. We live in Wisconsin. There's no mandatory coverage here. So we knew that in order to do that, we were going to have to be paying out of pocket. So on average, if you're not familiar with like the cost of IVF, it costs around $20,000 per cycle. So that's like an egg retrieval, transfer, medication. So anyways, we knew that it was going to be an investment. So we finally decided to try IVF in 2021. And I kind of went into that blindly and also assumed that it would just work. And also the part that like I haven't really alluded to yet when I'm talking about our journey is the fact that like I was a dietitian and I was thinking about like I'm eating healthy, like everything's fine on my end. Like my tests were coming back textbook normal. I felt like I like was eating healthy. I would describe how I was eating as like, you know, more like clean eating. I didn't really eat like a ton of fat. Like I ate some fat, but not a ton of fat. And I was still doing like HIIT workouts, things like that. I think I was under the impression that like I'm a dietitian and it's fine. And the longer that we were trying to conceive and the more I started to learn about fertility nutrition, I honestly got like caught up in like the webs of like all the misinformation that there is out there. And so there was like times where I was like doing things now that I reflect back on where I'm like, oh my gosh, that was like probably making it worse. Like it definitely wasn't helping. And I started to realize like, okay, so as a dietitian, like someone with a background, like I have a master's degree, so 6 years of education in nutrition, like our internship, like all this stuff on nutrition. And like, I still was confused about fertility nutrition and like having to like sift through all the information, all the research, all the other stuff is like a lot. And so after our first round of IVF, which ended up failing, we got a couple of embryos, but neither of them ever stuck. So at this point, we were like 4 going on 5 years into this, and like I'd never gotten a positive pregnancy test. And honestly, at this point, I was like convinced that they never turned positive.
Yeah, you're like, this is not possible. This is never gonna work.
It was like, there was one time so when you take trigger shots and you're doing fertility treatments, like it can create a positive pregnancy test. So I vividly remember one time after a trigger shot, I peed on a pregnancy test to see if it actually turned positive because I was like, this is a joke. Like this doesn't actually work. Okay, it did turn positive, in case anyone was wondering, from the trigger shot, of course. But after our first round of IVF didn't work, I like kind of went down a rabbit hole again and around nutrition and like trying to like take the right supplements and like be perfect about like what I was eating, blah, blah, blah. But then I kind of also circled back. And then that's when I started to realize that like things like fat are really important. And I also realized that in order to like do anything with like my nutrition, like it needed to be realistic. It needed to be like, I need to live my life. Like I can't, like infertility is hard enough. Like I can't not eat whatever in order to get pregnant if it's not going to work anyways, because that's kind of the reality of fertility treatments. So, okay, fast forward. Basically, what ended up happening is we moved temporarily to Pennsylvania. I found a new IVF doctor, a new IVF clinic. And we did 2 more egg retrievals. Our third egg retrieval was probably going to be like our most eggs that we were ever going to get until the trigger shot didn't work. So the trigger shot is what makes you ovulate all the eggs that you've grown. And we got 1 egg. And I was pretty much like, yep, this is over. I'm never doing this again. Like, this is like this is ridiculous, it's not going to work. But like by some crazy wild stretch of the imagination, that one egg became our one embryo that ever tested normal. And I shouldn't say normal, but euploid. And it implanted, and we had a baby last August. So after like 6 years of infertility, which is just like wild. I still, like, when I tell the story, I'm like, this isn't true.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy because I think it's just funny. I was in like a mom Facebook group this week, and it was so interesting because, and there's like 40,000 people in this group, and somebody's like, it's taken me 6 months and I haven't gotten a positive pregnancy test. Is this normal? Should I be freaking out? And I'm like, oh man, like people are just not aware of what can happen and how long this can take. And then it's also frustrating because in the medical world for infertility, for instance, it's like try for a year before doing anything. And it's like, well, there's some like really easy tests that we can do to rule out things way before a year. So if you are in that boat and it's been 6 months, 8 months, and nothing's happened, ask your doctor about just running there's some basic things that we can get run. And I experienced the same thing with recurrent miscarriages because normally they won't do any testing on you on anything until you've had 3. And I'm like, so you are expecting a woman to miscarry 3 times before you look into this at all, which is absolutely insane. And so it's like, it sucks that we have to be our own advocate. And so it is that kind of that balance of like, what's normal, what's not, and then when should you look into some sort of testing? Because again, there's a lot of like non-invasive blood tests that you can just go in, and even if you are talking about trying to conceive, whether it's the first time around or the second or third time around, like go in and just get a basic blood panel, like go in and get a physical, just get basic stuff done before embarking on this. Because I know for me, my progesterone was really low for a lot of my miscarriages. That's something they could have easily caught early on, and I could have avoided several of my miscarriages. And so, not that it necessarily is going to change anything, but if there is something glaring right up front, we could save ourselves potentially months or years of some of this struggle.
Yeah, that is something that I wish that we would have done like right away. It was like do just like some initial testing or after it had been like 6 months or something. Because here's the thing, like after, I remember vividly, like after like 6 months of trying, like, oh man, like the stress was like already setting in. Like I was so anxious, I was so like touchy. Like people were like would be like telling me they're pregnant, and I would be like just so upset about it. So I completely agree with you. Like there's nothing wrong with advocating for yourself and asking for more lab work. And if someone's not going to give it to you, like I would say like try a different provider.
Yeah, absolutely. And you touched on something there too, I want to go back to, but like navigating the mental aspect of infertility can be so hard, especially at our age when it feels like everyone's getting pregnant, everyone's having kids, you're invited to baby showers. And I felt like that too. Obviously our stories are so different and our problems like and struggles are very different. But I just remember like being at a friend's baby shower while I was actively miscarrying. It ended up days later, I was in the ER, emergency surgery, hemorrhaging. Like it turned so fast. And yet I was like showing up to this baby shower, pretending things were fine. And I was like, get me the F out of here. I don't want to be here. Right. And I'm sure you've experienced that through years of infertility of like another pregnancy announcement, another baby shower. And it's hard because something I struggled with mentally was like, I am happy for you. And like, I don't want to take that away from you, but also like, this is so triggering for me. And so do you have any, like, now that we're both on the other end of it, right? Do you have any advice or like things that really helped shift your perspective during this time? Because somebody might be listening to this and they're in that now. They're like, I am struggling with infertility, secondary infertility, recurrent miscarriage, something, and everyone around them is seemingly having easy pregnancies. What would you say to that person?
So first of all, I think whatever you see on like I think social media is like a really good example of this, but like whatever you see, like even when someone announces that they're pregnant, like so many people don't share the back end. So
Yeah.
a lot of people don't share if they had a miscarriage or if they struggled to get pregnant. Like a lot of people just share the happy
Yeah.
ending, which was something that really bothered me, which is why I share so much about my story because if I didn't share about it, like people just think, oh, she was just married for a long time before she got
Mm-hmm.
pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And also like all the things that you think when you're going through infertility, like I probably thought it too. So whatever you're thinking, I probably thought it too. So the first thing is like, it's just normal because it sucks. Like it just sucks. And there's just no way to like sugarcoat it. It is like a very hard time. And now I think even being like, so now that my daughter's like almost 9 months, I think I'm just finally starting to like, because you go through infertility and then you are pregnant and like it's amazing but it's also scary at the same time and then you're like thrown into the postpartum experience which I know you talk a lot about that on here, so I'm not going to get into that, but I feel like I'm finally like coming out of
Yeah.
that. And so I'm starting to see like retrospectively like while I was on the journey, and I think the biggest thing is to just like give yourself grace with like how you feel. Like it's perfectly fine. It's valid. Like here's the thing. I read something the other day that was talking about when people are going through different like illnesses, like and they're going through different treatments, like people will say like, "Oh, congratulations. Like you're going through a kidney transplant, you're going through like chemo or something like that." Like no, but like if you decide to do IVF to treat your infertility, people are like congratulating you. And so my point being that it's understandable like what you're going through, and I think don't put the pressure on yourself to have anything to have it like be perfect or to have like the perfect response when someone tells you. Like I feel like I had so many human responses when like people told me they were pregnant. Like I've not talked about this publicly, but I'll talk about it right now. Like 2 weeks before we transferred our embryo, my like best friend told me that she was pregnant with her second, and her first one was like after a struggle to get pregnant, and her first one wasn't even a year yet. And so like it was really fast and I was like not expecting it, and I like, this is someone that I've like known my entire life, and let me just tell you that my response to it was not good. It was not good. But like we can kind of look back on it now and like laugh about it. So the thing is that the people that are there for you, that are there for you in the thick of it and like that stay by you, are like, those are your people that are going to stay with you. Like some of your friendships might change, some of them might go away. But when you come out on the other side of it, which I think that's my big message here, is like there is a life on the other side of it. You might have to like rebuild your life. I feel like I'm in the phase of like rebuilding my life after infertility and then postpartum. So you might have to like rebuild your life, but you can do that however you want. So I think just knowing that everything's going to be okay on the other side of it, and giving yourself grace.
Yeah. And it is a season, and it feels like, I mean, it might be a season for you that is almost a decade. It might be a season that's 5 years long. Like for us, I think our first, when we like look at when we started trying for Sawyer, and then when we experienced 5 miscarriages, like that was a several year period of going through that. And I'm at this point now where I'm like, I'm so glad this is our like last one, and it feels final, and it feels like I'm getting through this season, because it was a really taxing long season. And obviously everybody has different outcomes. Like somebody might be in infertility for 5 years and they might be like, I'm done. I'm ending this season and I'm calling it on my terms. And maybe that looks like we're just done and we're not going to have kids. And maybe it's looking into other options for how to grow your family. Like there's a lot of options, but I do think that there is some peace when you get through this season in whatever way it looks like. And I think that's the hardest part, is because when you're in it, it feels like it's your whole life. It's like all consuming and it's all you think about. It's all you talk about. And then just that hope that you will get through this season. It may not end with you getting pregnant. It may not end with you having kids. It may not end. It might end in a very different way. It might end in a very beautiful way that you never anticipated. It might end in a way that you didn't think, but just knowing that there is an end at some point, it kind of gave me comfort. And we even had the discussion of when we were trying for our third, it was like, I said, if we miscarry again, like if we have a sixth one, like I'm done. I can't mentally go through this anymore. And it was just, then we're done. Like, so our season is ending. And we even had like a deadline. It was like, our season is ending. It's either we're not getting pregnant again after trying, we miscarry and we're done, or we're ending with a baby. Like at some point we have to end the season and it's on our terms. And I think that's something, I know you and I have privately talked about this, but I think that's something that really helped you before you got pregnant. You almost like surrendered to that same thing of like, I'm just going to accept what is and make peace. And I might not be able to get pregnant and I have to make peace with, like, can you talk about that? Cause I remember you going through that and it was very pivotal and powerful. And then all of a sudden, boom, like, and I'm not promising anybody here that like, if you make peace, like immediately you're going to get pregnant. But I do think there is so much power in that.
Yes. Okay. So that is very true. So like after that third egg retrieval, when the trigger shot didn't work and like we only got one egg, that was kind of like my breaking point. That was like, I'm done. I was like, I cannot do any more of this. Like I cannot do any more egg retrievals. Like this just probably means like we're not going to have kids. And I was kind of like, I was in the process of like setting up like what my life would look like. Like I had completely stopped, even to be honest with you, I'd like stopped envisioning what it would be like to have kids, like what my life would look like. There's so many things about like motherhood that I just like stopped thinking about. I stopped even considering it. And I think I stopped like before that pivotal moment, but that moment was when I was like, nope, like this is how, like, I can't do this forever. And I did surrender. And I remember I was talking with like our mutual friend, Melissa, and I was just like, I remember very vividly, like texting her and saying like, it's over. Mm-hmm. And I like laugh about it now. But she would say the same thing. Like it was very pivotal in the sense of like, I just like completely surrendered. And I don't know that I have like a specific tip on like how to get there, because prior to that, like I had been trying to just like surrender and like let it go and like see what happened and all that stuff. But I think you do have to like hit a point where you are just like, you need a pivotal moment, and it's really hard to pinpoint what that pivotal moment will be. And I feel like you've probably had those too. Actually, I know we've talked a little bit about one of yours. And so the surrendering helped a ton, because also then when I went into that particular transfer, was I hopeful? Yes, I was hopeful. I was like, okay, like this could happen. But at the same time, I was also like, you know, if it doesn't, like it doesn't. Like I was like ready to move on. I don't know if it didn't work. Like maybe I would have done one more egg retrieval just because of how the third one went.
Right.
But I think getting to that point of just not being so anxious about it, and I had kind of accepted what life would look like. That doesn't mean, so here's the thing that I'm realizing now. I had accepted what life would look like without kids, and I was okay with it. But that doesn't mean like I wasn't like grieving.
Right. Yes. I think that is huge. It's like accepting like this might be our reality. I'm doing everything in my power. And at the end of the day, like we don't have control over everything. Like this, like getting pregnant, having kids, like there is an aspect that is completely out of our control, no matter how much we try to control it. And there's so many aspects of our life like that, where it's like, I can only do so much. And letting go does not mean that you're just accepting it and moving on easily. It's there is a grief process of that surrendering. And I remember going through that too. It was like, I don't know if we're going to have another one. And that sounds so silly being like, oh my gosh, I might only have 2 kids. But like, there's a grief process through all of it. And it looks different for every single person and every single couple. And especially like just all the trauma that you go through like with that. But yeah, I think that's a good distinction of, it's not just accepting it and moving on. Okay, I guess we're not going to have kids. There's a grief process involved for sure with any decision. And then, yes, like at some point you will get into a new season. If you've been wanting to reach your healthiest weight and feel like yourself again postpartum without having to sacrifice your favorite foods or your milk supply, I've got a free workshop just for you. Inside of this free workshop, you'll discover how to boost energy, mood, metabolism, and even protect your milk supply. You'll learn common mistakes that moms make that actually cause exhaustion, mood swings, low milk supply, and weight loss resistance to become worse, things that moms don't even realize. And you'll learn the proven 3-step method to heal your hormones and metabolism after baby so you can go from surviving to thriving postpartum. Plus, as a free gift, you'll get my postpartum snack guide when you come hang out with us. All you have to do is click the link in the show notes to save your seat today. Spots are limited. See you there. So, oh,
yeah.
Well, we went off topic and that is okay because people need to hear that. Can we talk for a few minutes just about the importance of nutrition for infertility and especially some common myths and mistakes that you see moms making when they're going into, maybe they're going into IUI, IVF, or maybe they haven't even gone into that yet, but they have been trying for, let's say, 3 to 6 months, no success. And they're like, what do I need to do here? What's in my control that I can start doing?
So my biggest thing when we're talking about like the importance of nutrition for fertility is that a depleted body is not a body that is set up for pregnancy. And when I say like depleted, I mean like when you're not eating enough, which is really, really common, I think, among women. So I tend to see a lot of people just like eating inconsistently, missing meals, and also not eating enough of like the right nutrients because your body, in order to reproduce, this is the way I like to look at it, in order to reproduce and for your hormones to be functioning, for you to like ovulate, for the embryo to implant and then continue to like carry that pregnancy, your body needs to be well nourished. Like if your body is not well nourished, your body is not going to think it's a great time to reproduce. For example, like when people are on diets and they're restricting calories, for example, like people think, or the body thinks that it's in a famine. And if there truly was like a famine, even though your body doesn't understand like that you probably have access to food, it's not going to think that that's a great time to like bring a baby into the world. So I really like to remind people that you want your body to not be in fight or flight. I want you to be like well nourished. So nourished with the right nutrients, because that's going to signal to your body that ovulation can occur, implantation can occur, and it will have your hormones balancing at the right optimal levels that are going to set you up to get pregnant and have a healthy pregnancy. So I think that's like the importance behind fertility nutrition. And I think about that, like when I think about like the postpartum experience and how like you talk a ton about like how like your nutrient needs postpartum are so different than any other time in your life. And so if you are someone that's like postpartum and now you're thinking about having another, like your nutrition is so incredibly important because especially like if you're breastfeeding, like you're putting a lot of nutrients into your body. Your body's recovering from a pregnancy, a birth, and breastfeeding. And then now you want it to, like, you're considering getting pregnant. Like, you need proper nutrition for that. But the biggest mistake that I really see women making around fertility nutrition is just like going on Google and like researching and using that or like Facebook groups as like just crowdsourcing ideas of like what to eat to get pregnant, because just because it like worked for the girl down the street or whoever on the internet does not mean it's going to work for you. And some of this advice that I see out there is just wrong.
Yeah. Well, and I think same with postpartum. There's not one magic food that like, if every single person eats this, they're going to get pregnant. There's not one magic food that if you just eat this food and nothing else, you're going to heal faster postpartum. There are for sure foods that can help optimize fertility. There are definitely foods that I really encourage moms to eat more heavily when they're postpartum because of the vitamins and minerals and nutrients. So it's not that food is not important. It's so important. However, everyone is different. So if you're struggling with infertility and you're deficient in, I don't know, 3 different vitamins, but your friend is telling you to take a supplement that's not for those vitamins, and she's telling you to take a supplement that's for a different vitamin that your labs are totally fine in, that's not going to help you. And so there is an aspect that needs to also be individualized. And individualized, again, I think people hear that and they think I need like my hand held and I need the one-on-one support with everything. And that's not true. It's just women need to understand how their body works and how nutrition works for them. And okay, if I get my lab work back and my vitamin D's low, what do I do? Like they just need to understand, like, what do I do? Right. Oh, I can take a supplement. I can get outside more. I can eat these types of foods. And then that gives them direction. So I think that is something is just a lot of moms in general they're just looking at blanket meal plans or solutions, and meal plans and recipes are awesome tools. But again, you need to still understand what's going on in your body individually in order for you to optimize it the right way.
Yes. And you need to understand like what's going on with your body, and then like what are the nutrients then that are important to support your body and your situation, because it is different.
Yeah. And I see like women in both like trying to get pregnant and also in the postpartum period also make the mistake of going on something restrictive where they're restricting things that they don't need to restrict. So a lot of my breastfeeding moms will start restricting 10 or 12 foods thinking that it's causing their baby to be fussy or whatever. And in some instances, there are some symptoms and side effects that a baby has. And it is very clear that the baby has an allergy. So we are not ignoring allergies by any means. But moms will say, oh, my baby's fussy. I think it's this, 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 and this. And they're cutting out 10 or 12 things. Their baby's not getting better. And now they're restricting foods that are high in vitamins and minerals. And then I'm sure you see the same thing with fertility of, oh, if I want to get pregnant, I need to restrict X, Y, Z. Some of the foods are actually really beneficial for us. I mean, sure, there's things like alcohol. Like, will cutting down alcohol hurt our health? No. like that's great for all of us, you know? So there's some things in there that, of course, is not necessarily harmful advice. But when we're cutting out things that are really nutritionally beneficial and they don't need to be cut out, I think that's where we're also just adding more stress to our bodies in an already stressful time. Like infertility and postpartum, like they're both stressful times.
Right. Yeah. Like they're already like emotionally stressful. And then you tell yourself like you can't eat pasta or something. And it's like, okay, well, you know, that's not ruining your fertility. And there are some nutrients in there that are helpful. So yeah, absolutely. I agree. Like we need to like take less stress off. Like, and food is one of those things that is a controllable factor when it comes to your fertility. Like there's a lot of things that you can't control. And we touched on that earlier, but food is one of those things that you can control. So it's easy to then like pinpoint and want to control and it's easy to be like, oh, I'm just not going to eat that food because that feels like very controlling. But I really like to flip it and look at, okay, like, but what can you add? And what do you need to add? Because that is still in your control and it's a lot more empowering.
Yeah. And I think there's a difference between being educated and knowing what to do, like what to add in and the basic simple things to do to optimize fertility nutrition. And then there's a difference in becoming obsessive about it, where it's taking over your life. And I think that's where a lot of moms struggle. I feel like there's kind of three paths. Like there's the obsessive mom who is counting everything, like super stressed, like looking at every ingredient. She's obsessive. She's very stressed out. And then there's the middle ground mom who she's like, I understand what I need to do. I'm taking these vitamins and minerals. This is how I'm balancing my plate. This is the fruits and veggies I'm adding in. Like they're pretty balanced and it's not that stressful. Like they're doing simple changes, but they also still enjoy dessert. And then there's like the mom who is like, I'm too overwhelmed to even look into it. And wait, I need to be on a vitamin. Like they're not even taking any action at all. And their body is just depleted, usually unintentionally. Some of the obsessive moms are like depleted intentionally, even though they're like over, so it is this middle ground of understanding what your body needs and making simple changes without becoming your whole life, because this could be a season of 6 years, 5 years. Like, how do you want this to look? What are the things you can do without becoming, where it takes over your entire life?
Right. Like you can't spend like however many years you're in this season. You can't not go on vacation.
Yeah.
You can't not eat cake at the birthday party. You can't not go out to eat. That was like a really big thing for me. But like going out to dinner and having like date night with your spouse, like infertility is really hard on a relationship, which is like a whole other topic. But like having a date night and actually going and being able to enjoy yourself and eat what you want and not feeling guilty about it and not blaming that for the reason why you aren't pregnant yet or anything like that. Like that's really powerful. Like,
yeah, absolutely. So do you have any other simple tips to help moms optimize fertility success? Like if somebody came up to you and maybe they haven't even started IVF or IUI. Maybe they're just like, hey, I've been trying, hasn't worked. What are like 2 or 3 simple things that they can start doing today, whether it's nutrition or just overall habits related, that you would tell them to do?
I think the biggest thing that I always start with is consistent eating patterns. So eating every 3 to 5 hours during the day is huge, because what we want to try to do, and this kind of goes into a second tip, but like, is really make sure that your blood sugar is stable. And I know that that's something that you talk about postpartum too. And I think that's because we know that unstable blood sugars lead to inflammation in the body, leads to energy crashes. It causes mental health problems, but that also then impacts your hormones. And that's going to impact whether you ovulate, the quality of your egg. It's going to impact, any, like if you have something like endometriosis, like that can impact inflammation. So the more consistent your eating patterns are, that's going to help to improve your blood sugar and reduce your inflammation, which is a huge thing that's talked about in infertility. They're always studying like, why is infertility on the rise? And I think there's a lot of different theories, but inflammation is something that isn't helping, but it's not like following an anti-inflammatory diet that we tend to hear about. So the simple things, start with eating every 3 to 5 hours. And so you can stabilize your blood sugar and don't be afraid to eat fat.
Yeah. I love fat.
Same. Oh my gosh. I know. I eat so much like full fat dairy and like avocados, like olive oil. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Butter.
It is so true. And I think I had a fear for a while of like, fat's going to make you fat. And it's like, no, it doesn't. Or fat's going to raise my cholesterol. And no, there's like a lot of other things that raises your cholesterol, like smoking and being sedentary and having high stress and eating just a ton of sugar all day and having unbalanced blood sugar. And so I know for me, when I started eating more fat in my diet, and I went a little crazy, like I went a little paleo and keto at one point in my life, but I went from like a vegetarian, so I was not eating enough, like I was not eating any fat or protein, to all of a sudden eating like paleo, keto type of meals. And I did, going from that to that for my body, it was like, oh yeah, my body actually thrives with more protein and more fat. I'm full, I'm satisfied, I'm not binging anymore. But fat's so important for our hormone balance. And so And something I always talk about in my community too is like the low fat products are crap. If you look at the ingredients, it's just chemicals, sugar, they remove the fat. And so, we learned this in food science, but like when you remove the fat, we're putting in sugar and all these different chemicals to try to give it that texture and flavor. And so when we're comparing the ingredients, it's like, sure, that might have less fat, but look at all the chemicals and look at all the ingredients in there and it's actually disrupting your hormones so much more to put that into your body. And so, yes, I know you and I are huge fans of like full fat dairy. If you're, not lactose intolerant and you can eat dairy and can tolerate dairy, but nuts and seeds and avocados and olive oil and cheese. And we're from Wisconsin originally, so bring on the cheese. But,
right.
But that is just something so crucial. Like the fat and the blood sugar balance, it's so important for trying to conceive, for pregnancy. If you are pregnant, is so important for postpartum, for breastfeeding. It's really, there is a lot of overlap, between fertility, pregnancy, breastfeeding. It is interesting because you look at the specific nutrient needs and it's like they're increased when we're trying to conceive, and then we increase them more when we're pregnant. And then what most people don't know is you actually have to increase them again when we're breastfeeding. There is overlap, but it's like the vitamins and minerals like increase incrementally. And so I think like also being on a good quality prenatal vitamin when trying to conceive, when pregnant, when postpartum, when breastfeeding, like that's something else that's super simple to do.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I was just like thinking too about like if you are going into pregnancy depleted and not having like enough nutrients, enough stores in your body, like it's only going to get worse. Because like just speaking from like personal experience, like postpartum, like even postpartum, like it was so hard, but I know that like if I didn't have like the nutrition component, like it took me, because I had a C-section, it took a long time for my milk supply to really like get up, which also this is like a huge kudos to Brooke because she's like helped me so much behind the scenes.
Oh yeah.
on my milk supply. But it took my milk supply so long to come, like not to come in, but to like really get up to the levels that I needed.
Yeah.
And like without enough nutrition, like I would not have been able to do it.
Yeah, it's so true. Nutrition is it's so crucial, and it like I said, it's just finding that balance of what's realistic in this season of life. What are the 2 or 3 things that you can implement now, and then maybe once those become habits, there's 2 or 3 things you can bring in the next month or in the future. So you don't have to overhaul everything and be perfect, but it is something we have control over. And yeah, a depleted body is going to struggle to get pregnant. A depleted body is going to struggle during pregnancy. A depleted body is going to struggle postpartum. So you have control over what that depletion looks like. And a lot of these symptoms, like whether you're trying to conceive, pregnant, or postpartum, if you are exhausted all the time, if you have all this crazy hair loss, like there are so many symptoms that people just kind of tell us as women are normal. And just because it's common doesn't mean it's normal. And so don't be afraid to advocate for yourself. Don't be afraid to ask your doctor to run tests. And even if, you're listening to this, maybe you're a year postpartum and you're like, I want to get pregnant again. Awesome. Go in, get a physical, just get some of these labs done. Make sure that things are looking good. And then really focus on replenishing and really focus on good quality nutrition so that you have an easier time, hopefully,
Yeah. Absolutely. 100%. Totally agree.
Awesome. Are there any last minute things you want to leave us with? Otherwise you can share where to find you and how to work with you.
I mean, I think the last thing that I would just leave everyone with is I'm just going to re-highlight what you said, which is like a depleted body is not in a place to get pregnant. And if you are coming off previous like pregnancies, maybe even like fertility treatments that led to a previous pregnancy, and breastfeeding, like, or maybe you're just in like your first time trying to get pregnant, like a depleted body is not in a place to get pregnant and have a healthy pregnancy. So that's why we're here to help you thrive and figure out a way to support your body so that we are getting adequate nutrients to get pregnant and have a healthy pregnancy.
Yeah.
But you can find me mostly on Instagram, and that's where I spend most of my time. So always feel free. My DMs are always open. If you're struggling with infertility, I get a lot of people message me about like male factor because it's not something that a lot of people talk about. So you can find me at nutrition.for.infertility. And if you go there, you can find a link to my free training, which is all about fertility nutrition to help you optimize your chances of getting pregnant. And you can also join my online course.
Awesome. And I can link all that in the show notes below. And yeah, thanks for listening, guys. And we hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and listening to the Postpartum Shift podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean the world to me if you could share this episode with a mom friend and leave a written review. This helps the podcast reach and help even more moms. Come say hi over on Instagram at Nutrition for Mamas.